What a wonderful day!
Hello, welcome to another episode of Somewhere Between a film and TV podcast. We're your host. I am Daniel Parra.
And I'm Erwin Trejo.
And this episode, we will be reviewing Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. Everything we review does have full spoilers. Erwin?
Yes.
I
love monkeys, yes. I do.
I have a lot of thoughts on this movie. I want to try and organize them.
Yes.
So before we fully get into this one,
Okay.
I gotta ask you, what do you think of this franchise in general? Have you seen the Tim Burton one or any of the older ones with Mark Wahlberg? And what do you think of Rise, Dawn, and War?
Well, I don't think I've seen the older ones.
Okay.
I remember, I know about them. I just recently saw this video of just them explaining the timeline for all of it. And the Mark Wahlberg one, I remember watching, I don't know, I just remember scenes from it.
Okay.
But, I just hear it's not great. But what do you
Of
just the
Tim
older
Burton one?
ones and the Tim Burton ones.
I have seen the 68 one.
Okay.
It is one of those things where it's considered one of the best movies ever made for a reason. It's partially by the guy who made Twilight Zone.
Okay.
And I think that movie's brilliant. It is not what you think it is, but then again, to me, none of these movies are what you think they are until you see them. They, on their basis, I do love monkeys. I know you love monkeys. They have this sort of quality to them where you kind of forget how serious they are because of their subject matter, up until you realize that they are usually commentary or metaphor for something going on in the world. Or they're about class, they're about race, they're about the idea of war and what it means. All of these have something to say. And I'll get to the new one in a second and what I think it's about. But that one I think is amazing. The one I think is terrible is, in fact, the Tim Burton one. It has one of the... We talk about twists all the time and what they are. Yeah. It has one of the worst twists maybe ever in a movie.
What was the twist again?
So, you're going to say it's not a twist, and you're right, it's not, because it makes no fucking sense.
Okay.
It's this moment... So, Mark Wahlberg is stranded on Planet of the Apes, where everything is ruled by apes. Yes. And I was watching clips from that today, by the way, and I think that the makeup on them sounds exactly the way that Jim Carrey talks in The Grinch, which makes you wonder if you can't move parts of your mouth that make you sound like that. And with that, he gets back onto Earth, and then the Abraham Lincoln statue is an ape. It's this whole joke. People call it Abraham Lincoln or Ape Lincoln. And funny. It is funny. But I've heard and read that a million different times over the years. And then everybody gets out of the police car and they arrest him, and you know what they all are? They're all apes, yeah. And then it ends.
Wait, I'm confused. Wait, okay. So when did he see Ape Lincoln?
Whenever he gets back to his Earth.
Oh, to his own Earth.
Yeah.
But he was on two different planets.
He was on a different planet.
He went to a different planet, then went back to his planet.
Yeah.
And then he realized that his planet is all apes.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's it. That's how the movie ends. And they never made another one because people hate that movie. Yeah. And people don't really understand it. I think what he was going for was that it was supposed to be a butterfly effect about how his tangling with them somehow led back to that, but that makes no sense.
It sounds to me it sounds like from the information you gave me, it just sounds like he went to that planet where that's Planet of the Apes, right?
Right.
And it just seems like he probably went back to his planet, but probably in a time in the future type of sense.
Yeah.
And maybe, but even then, I'm just I don't know.
Maybe.
I have to watch the movie.
I don't really remember it very well, but the funny thing is, I actually used to kind of be obsessed with that movie as a kid. I think it's maybe because it was the one monkey thing around, but then again, I was also obsessed with King Kong. So anything involving monkeys since I was a kid, I would look for, including my gym partner's a monkey. Rise of the Planet of the Apes, I do also have a very specific memory of watching. We talk about movies that we remember seeing for the first time in theaters.
Yes.
This is definitely one of them for me.
Okay.
Because
I didn't see that one in theaters.
Did you not?
No, I saw... I'm pretty sure I saw Dawn and then War in theaters. But for Rise, I remember at home. Yeah. And I remember in the living room, and I remember my dad just clicking through, and it was on FX.
And then watching it?
Yeah, and it was just like starting.
Yeah.
And I remember I was so invested when that part happens, that scene.
It's the no.
Yes.
It's unfair for me to call this like the worst one because it's my least favorite, but that's not without saying. You got to think about the fact that this franchise has Dawn and War in it, so that's just not fair.
Oh, I can't.
And watching Rise again,
yes,
it's incredible. It's still great.
Yes.
It still looks amazing. Is it a little bit more aged in terms of visual effects? Just by a bit. But I think that's only because Dawn and War still look perfect.
Yes.
Like I watching them again just recently, they're flawless. Like there's not a single issue visually or thematically with those movies at all. And Rise, you're right. When I saw this in theaters, I think this is the way to do fan service and callbacks, because not only do they call back a bunch of the stuff that happens in the original, they expand on it with new ideas. Because the whole line about "get your hands off me, you damn dirty ape," they say it in the Tim Burton one, but it doesn't come off. It comes off as goofy and like sort of like winking at the camera. Yeah. Whenever we talk about like fan service and all of that, and what do you think of that? But I remember that whenever he says that line, people laugh, but it's immediately cut off because of the way the camera sort of pans up to Caesar. Yes. And then he like lengthens his body and then yells no. And I do remember the gasp like in the theater when that happened. That's an incredible play on not just fan service, but expanding your idea so you have something new to offer. Because from then on, the franchise is like, okay, I see what we're doing now. Why it's called Rise of the Planet of the Apes. And I still do love the human characters in these movies. That's where I don't know if these are considered monster movies. I don't really pair them like that. I don't ever view them in the same lens that I view Godzilla, even though that's also allegory for war and the atomic bomb. But these have their own thing going for them.
Yeah. I do love that scene how you were just explaining Caesar saying no. Yeah. Because I think, at least to me, where at first it just feels like there's not an imbalance of like, who am I following? Caesar or like the human characters, right? And like, who am I like rooting for? Yeah. And so the moment where the camera pans to Caesar saying no, I feel that the director had it where from now on this is Caesar's story. Yeah, you're following Caesar throughout this whole trilogy from now on. Yeah. Because now, ever since like even with the other two with Dawn and War, of course we get the human characters, but they just don't compare to how Caesar has been treated. Yeah. Throughout this whole trilogy.
And I'm getting a little ahead of myself here, but you can tell that Caesar's still very much important to the series because of how he's used in Kingdom. Yes. And that's one of the best parts of the movie to me. But with these movies are all about something. Yes. Rise of the Planet of the Apes is sort of about playing God and how easily you could have this domino effect of mankind being its sort of own reason for being wiped out. If they had just kept it with just Caesar or left it alone. Yeah. Then,
I mean, just playing with nature. Yeah. Alone. So.
Because there's that whole thing where Caesar he bites that one.
Oh, the dad, or like the dad or something.
Yeah, and that guy. Yeah. He's like, watching that movie again was kind of funny because he doesn't ever really actually do anything wrong to them. He's just like, don't let the monkey come near my house or whatever, and that's kind of like all he says, and then he gets mad at John Lithgow because he tries to steal his car, and you're like, I mean,
I'm not gonna like dementia or something.
Yeah, Alzheimer's. Like Alzheimer's. Yeah, because they call it ALZ-15, I think, or 14. It doesn't matter. Yeah. But I still love that movie. You know who's in that?
Who?
Brian Cox from Succession.
Oh.
I forgot he was in it, but when he showed up, I was like, that's I know who that is.
Yeah.
And he has dyed red hair.
Oh.
So I was like, I don't know why he has that in that movie. But then, that's the only one I would call a little bit imperfect out of the three. It's just because I don't know if it's because I know 2 and 3 that I think that it has some form of pacing issue in that it maybe doesn't focus on the apes enough, but that's also not fair because it definitely does, because the second half transitions to them fully, like you said.
Yes.
But is there anything else you remember about Rise that you really enjoy, or?
No, not really. I mean, I feel like you said everything with about Rise.
I'll let you go first on Dawn.
Dawn.
Though.
I just never knew how big Matt Reeves was gonna be.
Yeah.
But after watching these two, I guess I'm just amazed how much he handled, especially with Dawn.
Yeah.
And just setting up how Caesar was gonna handle, and not just Caesar alone, but like apes against humans throughout this whole, I guess, not just the trilogy,
whatever they're aiming for now.
Yeah, but like this, apparently it's like 9 movies.
Whenever they said that, I was like, this is one of the few franchises that can say this, and I'm like, yeah, that's fine.
I was like, I can't wait to see how it ends
goes,
and everything. So, but with Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, it's just I don't even know how to explain it. It just, the way it just shifts in terms of the way it looks amazing. Because even with Rise, there are moments where I was like, oh, it looks great.
Yeah.
But with Dawn, it's just like a whole new look. And I don't know what it is about Andy Serkis. It's just, he gets better and better.
He has this kind of gravitas to him that you have to credit him for motion capture.
Yes.
But I know that we talked about this on our Star Wars Ranked episode. This does stem from Ahmed Best and Jar Jar Binks, which is kind of hilarious that they're connected, because then just a couple of years later was Gollum. And Andy Serkis and Toby Kebbell, Judy Greer, literally everyone that's in these movies deserves all the credit in the world for how they bring these characters to life, because it's insane. And talk more about Dawn.
I think what I loved about Dawn as well is just basically putting Caesar in human-like areas, right? Having family, building trust with one another, and of course having the antagonist being human still, but then also having Caesar, and showing type of emotions that most likely apes have never really felt yet. Of course, they're just being more aware and just following whoever is the strongest, I'd say. And then of course Koba now being...
Koba's one of the...
It's just those... I don't know, because I remember the first time thinking, I was like, wow, Koba's a great villain.
Yeah.
But then it's just weird because it's how all these movies just connect so well to one another, because it's I can't talk about Dawn without talking about Rise, but then also about War,
because they perfectly expand on each other while also introducing new ideas.
Yes,
for sure.
I just don't, because now speaking about Koba, to me, Koba got better because of War.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, oh my gosh.
But that's also because of the whole thing with Andy Serkis, or Caesar.
Yes.
Who, by the way, I think one of the best movie characters of all time. I think that this movie, the new one, knows it too. I am really glad, we were just talking about this before we started recording, I'm glad that these movies they've always done well.
Yes.
It's just that people haven't really spoken about the fact that they'd seen them. But I told you that at my job, I would ask people oh, are you going to watch this? Are you going to see this? And they're like, oh yeah, no, I love the other ones. And I'm like, oh, you've seen these? And a lot of people have. It's just that there's no real discussion about them. But my theater was full.
Yes,
my theater was too. Yeah, it's doing really well. Let's go. I can't wait for more of these. As long as they have something to say. That was my apprehension with the new one. Okay. Was that I was really I know that 2 and 3 are incomparable. You can't. There's just, and that's sort of not fair to anything else that comes out.
See, but I think at least with Dawn, or just Dawn and War, they had their ideas about humans and apes, but at the same time, what the core was the main character, right? Caesar. And just seeing his dilemma of battling of, well, I was raised by humans and I was taken care of so well. Yeah. But then it's also them being the ones betraying us too.
That's why Dawn works so well. My personal favorite, and I've seen that people are like sort of going through a kind of revisionist thing here, not in the sense of like Phantom Menace, but more that like people are starting to say that War is their favorite. I've read that.
But we're saying Dawn was their favorite?
Yeah, people have been saying that for a while. And for me, I think 2 and 3 are perfect.
Yeah.
But Dawn, War takes every idea it has and solidifies them.
I love War so
and
much.
Expands on everything that it offers. But it also, these movies have such a deep quiet about them. They're grim and they're really dark. Like they're insanely dark movies.
They're beautifully dark. I love the way War looks.
Yeah.
Even just like in the first 5 minutes where the soldiers are going through the forest.
Oh yeah. Are you talking about War?
Yeah, War. Yeah. It looks. I had to pause it because I was like, why does it look so good?
And the Apocalypse Now stuff. There's like a thing on his helmet. It says Monkey Killer on it.
Yes.
And it's all of this sort of iconography of war and what that looks like. But Dawn, still, the reason why I love that one so much is because it is tragedy. It's just a series of events where things go wrong, and the more and more they stick to their morals, the more that they like can't help it. They like run into issues because they are all so right to themselves in their own ways. That it leads to their downfall. What makes Caesar so interesting is he's conflicted because of Rise. Like you said, these two expand on each other. Because Koba is unfortunately kind of correct. Everything he's shown. He has a reason to act that way. And then Caesar also has a reason to act that way too, because he shows a kindness and empathy because one person, or two really, showed that to him.
And Dawn?
Yeah. Well, and Rise.
On Rise, yeah.
So that like leads to the stuff with Jason Clarke in the second one. And those tie into each other really well. But then it leads to this third act conflict where, and I forgot that he shoots Caesar like in the middle of the movie. Because I was like, wait, I know he doesn't die in this one, but I also kind of forgot where it kind of goes. Because that huge... He goes,
Caesar!
Oh, yeah.
Oh, that's so good.
I get this kind of... He is one of the best movie villains ever. That whole thing with, like, it's a meme with him on Twitter is, I think, a meme for a reason. Like, he's getting the Thanos treatment 10 years later, but...
That's crazy.
You know, any time is a good time, I guess. And he has an amazing design. He's really ugly, but...
Well, because it's like just because of what the humans did to him. All the scientists and all.
Oh, the human work thing where he points at himself, because it's really small moments like that with that word. Also, I think we talked about it too, where the fact that sometimes these apes, when they talk to one another, they can say so much with so little. Yeah. Wait, can you tell the story about how the first time you saw Dawn and it didn't have subtitles?
Oh my gosh, yes. So I was watching. Where was it? I was watching Dawn at I think at home.
Yeah.
But for some reason there was no subtitles like whatsoever.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my gosh, I don't know how I'm understanding these apes. and then once I finished the movie, I told you about it, and you were like, what do you mean there was no subtitles? Like, there's subtitles. I was like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, like they talk to each other.
Yeah, and like they would showcase like the words and everything on the screen. I was like, what? So I watched it again and I'd make sure like I was watching it with subtitles. I was like, oh, it's there.
I don't know if it's because, I mean...
I think it's just because the expressions. And I think that's what, with these movies, they were able to showcase so much, like, just their emotions through their expressions. From all the actors and actresses who played the apes.
Well, that's why you're able to like know their names so well. I know Rocket and Koba and
Blue
Caesar
Eyes.
And what's the name of Rocket's son?
Oh, remember.
I forgot that he dies, and the way in which he dies is insane. But the landscape of these, they looks really, really good. I also forgot that Gary Oldman in Dawn is not even a villain. He's just sort of like stuck in the middle of the conflict. And the absolute one of the best scenes ever in a movie to me that's in Dawn is the moment when Koba tries to steal the gun from the guys in like the compound.
Oh, yes.
And then like the sort of like flip of the switch and then he shoots them. I remember that being in the trailer and being like, this movie looks awesome.
Yeah.
And it's still, to me, it's up there with all of the best sequels. People do put it in the category of, well, I guess Dune 2 is now up there.
Yeah.
And then there's also Empire Strikes Back. Everyone always says that. Dark Knight. It is there for me. It has all of the qualifications that
Caesar
put that there.
Sorry, I just love saying that.
But my favorite in that whole trilogy.
Yes.
And I mean, I definitely still think that it is my favorite of like all of them.
Wait, Dawn is?
No, War.
Oh, War?
Is War for the Planet of the Apes.
Yeah, War for the Planet of the Apes is still my favorite.
Yeah, what do you think?
It's just, I think because at the end of the day, all three of those movies, the main focus shifted to Caesar, and the third one definitely felt the entire time was about Caesar.
Yeah.
And just how his dilemma from his past and how he was letting his past affect what he's doing now. I mean, especially with like his family dying and seeing that happen because of a human again, and trying to deal with the fact that, am I ready to like let my morals go away just to avenge my family? And
it gets his entire tribe, his clan, in trouble in the first place. His own sort of revenge path is the downfall of everything he worked for in the first place. These movies are supposed to be a tragedy. It's supposed to be the sort of fall of Caesar. I don't know, like I'm sure the name's on purpose.
Yes.
And the idea of him is that he is our protagonist, and we were just talking about how I get annoyed when protagonists are not flawed. He's an incredibly flawed character in all the best ways. Were you gonna say something?
Oh, well, I feel like the moment, I think it was solidified in War for the Planet of the Apes when, like, Winter, do you remember that ape?
Yeah,
and how he, I don't think he passed out. I think he died.
Yeah.
Because Caesar had him.
Killed him.
Yeah, right? And I'm like, and that, I feel like that moment right then and there when he's like, ape, don't kill ape.
Yeah.
And he killed an ape.
Well, in the new one, they even say, like, these are Caesar's laws. Like, everything he say is laws, like the thing that they say. And with this one is the darkest, not just in terms like visuals, but like in terms of what it's dealing with thematically. And I forgot just how blunt,
bloody
that too.
Yeah,
there's so many different images. There's an image of whenever they take off the masks of the mute people that they had either slaughtered or one of them was left alive on accident.
Yes. And
you can see the blood in the snow. In a lot of the images of this are, I don't know if it's
or when the apes are hanging from the those X's and everything. Yeah.
And then Caesar's, they do that with him too.
Yes.
But that's why like these movies get away with the PG-13 rating. I'm not really sure how. I think it's because of the fact that we're not watching humans.
Yes.
But it's telling a humane story with them. That's what the best kind of sci-fi does, is it has these allegories for things. Like this also has Holocaust imagery in it.
Yes.
And it's about the oppression of people. And it's also about the kind of, like, Woody Harrelson's a psychopath in this one. And I told you I love how he plays him, because he plays him like this is normal. And everything he's saying is just like, no, he's right. Like, he feels completely right in what he's saying.
Yeah.
And that's sort of the best type of insane person, is the one that's not played like he is insane. I mean, you can get good performances out of that. Like, I know, like, Joker is like that. But no, with this, it has this very understated quality to it. And Matt Reeves, like you said, of course, is... I would never bet against him. I would never bet against this franchise either.
I think at the end of the day, like, I love this trilogy that they had.
Oh, I do want to say...
story.
We talked about this on a previous episode. I want to elaborate on this a little bit more. I find the design of the last act of this, and I don't want this to come off negative because it's a compliment.
Okay.
Is it's intentionally underwhelming in its wrap-up of the war. Because that's not what this is about. It's about the inner conflict between man and human, and how Woody Harrelson, his character, again, echoes the downfall.
Echoes.
Oh yeah, yeah, that's right. I think that's why they're called that. Is
Oh.
because they're echoes of the past, and are the echoes of humanity and how it was kind of their own downfall, because that girl touches that, and then that's how he the doll, and that's how he gets the simian flu, and he ends up killing himself, which is another, again, not how a major blockbuster trilogy would ever wrap itself up. Like, imagine Thanos, like, well, he wouldn't shoot himself with a gun, but
with the Infinity Gauntlet, he's just boom,
and then he's just like, I'm out of here, guys.
done.
Yeah, I think it's brilliant. I think that they're very kind of Shakespearean in what they do, and they all work incredibly well, which leads us into a movie that we haven't even talked about very much yet.
Damn, it's been like 40 minutes.
I know, but I love those. We both love those first three so much.
Yeah, that's true.
Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. What were your thoughts going into this before? What did you think of the trailers? And what did you think of it?
With the trailers, of course, I was already sold because I love the trilogy.
Yeah.
But I think with the trailers themselves, I don't know. I just felt like I hope they had like a strong idea of what they wanted to like showcase again.
Yeah.
Because if it felt like the same, I wouldn't want to watch it.
Yeah.
But luckily, of course, watching the movie now, it's like, okay, I see their ideas and what they have in store.
And unfortunately, I'm not even going to dare compare this to 2 or 3 because I don't know what the plot that they're leading towards is. I have senses of it. I have a feeling, but I would like to wait, because the only one that I think is really fair to compare it to right now is Rise.
Yeah.
Because 2 and 3 are so good anyway that I think like you're sort of setting yourself up for that if you end up comparing those.
Yeah.
But what'd you think of this?
I thought it was good.
Yeah.
Of course, there's some things that I was just I didn't really have, not really issues, but it just felt underwhelming.
Yeah.
But overall, I thought it was really good. I love the king.
Proximus Caesar.
I love the way he talked.
Oh, I love his like cadence and his voice.
Yes,
yeah.
it's so good. Who else? I like that orangutan.
Oh,
Rocky?
Rocka.
Rocka.
Yeah.
I keep saying Rocket or Rocket.
No, Rocket's awesome.
Yeah.
But
And then Nova. I really like Nova, or May.
The girl?
Yeah.
So I loved this, full disclosure. I am sort of also biased towards this franchise in the first place, though. I think some of the stuff that is underwhelming in it is either, I'm not like excusing anything being underwhelming.
Yeah.
I think I'm not gonna say it's by design either.
Yeah.
I was very impressed by this movie's patience. I thought it was intentionally sort of taking its time to guide you through this world in the first place. And this is one of those movies to me that even while watching it, I was like, I think watching this again, this is one of those gets better like as you watch it more movies.
Okay.
Because I love Noah. I think that's a great new character to follow.
I disagree.
And, really?
I like Noah, but to me, I think the other characters around him were more interesting to me. Like, I found his dad more interesting.
Did you really?
Yeah, I really did.
Yeah.
Or like the mom, or the girl that he was interested. I just think because Noah, he reminded me of like the audience experiencing it, which I totally understand because that's how they usually do with like main characters. But I just didn't think Noah had so much to work with, or I just didn't get like the same emotions or feelings compared to like the other like apes. And
for me, I would say the first half of this movie, I sort of agree, up until the stuff with May. He has what I am convinced is going to be the opposite arc of Caesar, because they laid the groundwork for it in this one. He trusts her up until he doesn't, and those final couple scenes of the movie where she has like the gun behind her back.
Okay, yes, that scene that was great.
Yeah, yes. And the look he gives, like the very last shot of the movie. Yeah, I was like, I think this is headed towards another war with the humans, and he's going to be leading that, and it's going to be about the fall of trust
See,
and
I don't know
with each other, because I hope, because like I don't know what their ideas are yet.
Yes.
But those are like sort of, that's the groundwork I'm getting from it.
And so what I got from the movie as well, whenever the Proximus Caesar was showing Noah the kingdom that he's building, I was thinking of, well, there's apes all around the world, right? Because even in war, they were saying how there's like other apes.
Yeah, they do. Yeah, they say that there's like everywhere.
Everywhere, right? Yeah. Same thing with humans. They're everywhere. And I do think there's going to be another like war type movie. But I don't know if they're going to introduce in more characters or like another main character to introduce another, like more ideas, right? Of course, I would like to follow this clan, but it just seems like the way they had this main character and everyone else was just focused in this one general area.
Because they do go back to
where they were.
Yeah, at the end of it.
Because imagine if Caesar like got everybody out there and Caesar was like, well, I'm going back home.
He like went back to
the house and everything. Like, you're like, what?
Like, why would he do that?
Yeah.
I think you're right. I think that'd be a good idea to introduce more than one main character, because
just like a different main character at least. I just didn't think he was strong enough to lead.
Yeah.
But that's because like I think I just found everybody else so much more fascinating than Noah himself, because Noah, to me, there wasn't enough reaction that he gave, at least to me, to care. I think
like the reason why I did respond to him so much is because of the reason that you didn't.
Oh, okay.
Was because we just talked about the hero's journey thing.
Oh, okay.
This again is that down to a T. It's like perfectly done following that plot structure, because at the beginning you are introduced to their world, what it's like, the status quo is what it's called. And they're raising the eagles and the egg thing. I thought that was all really fascinating. I love that these movies can incorporate lore and you just get it. You're like, okay, yeah,
I like that.
Yeah,
that was cool.
And then it's like, what is the thing that interrupts the thing that they're currently living with that makes the plot move forward?
Yes.
And it's, of course, whenever the human accidentally leads, or I guess it's also up to you to like figure out if it's accidentally or not to them in the first place.
Yeah.
And then things escalate from there, and it's like the whole like, what's the call to adventure? It's the whole thing where Raka's kind of like, I did love the moment whenever he goes through the tunnel, like the music, the way it builds up, I thought was really cool. And these movies do have a sort of like, they remind you that they do care about visuals so much. They're not only concerned about that, but they are very concerned about that. And what were my flaws with this? Because like, say some more of your positives before.
My positives?
Yeah.
I'm trying to think. I enjoyed the second half more than the first half.
Okay.
I think the first half was a bit slow just because it was a journey.
Yeah.
And the fact that they were just traveling along just to get to the actual kingdom itself, kind of dragged for me a little bit, because I'm just waiting, and they kept talking a lot about the past.
Yeah.
Right? So I don't know if it's just to like remind the audience about the past too.
I think it was, but also part of the point of this movie is the line with someone that I did not know was in this was William H. Macy.
Oh yeah, that's true.
And whenever he says, you need to stop thinking about the way things were and the way things are.
Evolution?
Oh, the way he says it's so cool, yeah.
I just love the way he was just talking the entire time in this movie.
That line though, pretty much from then on the movie's like
about that.
Yeah, okay. And then it's like, since it's said out loud, and I love this idea. I think this movie's kind of sort of about religion also, and twisting words for your own benefit, because I'm also really glad that they did this. I didn't know that they would. I straight up started this movie sort of like tearing up because they showed the Caesar funeral, and it benefited me having just seen those again, because I was like, that's Maurice, and then I was like, why is he?
And then Rocket.
Yeah, and then they show the thing at the beginning. I thought that was great. Like, it's cool because they're like, all right, this is to show that we can acknowledge these characters one last time before we fully move on.
Yes.
And the stuff where they bring up Caesar, you can still very much feel his presence throughout this movie, even if he's no longer around, because I don't know how many generations have passed, but they did say that it was generations.
I thought it said like 300.
Was it?
I think I read something where it said like after 300 years.
Okay. Well, they never say it like in the movie.
Oh, okay.
But with this though, I do think, for me, I like, if we're gonna compare, I think it's as good, or maybe I like it a little bit more, but I can't say that for sure.
Yeah.
I know it's as good as Rise, at least to me.
I would say it's as good as Rise. I would have to watch Rise again, but I don't know if I would say it's like better than Rise.
Yeah. But that's why I was also, we've even said this on a previous episode. Yes. I was like, I just want it to be good.
That's true.
Like,
I'm happy that it's good.
Yeah.
Because the second half of this movie was great. I think the moment they actually, or Noah and Nova actually get to the kingdom itself, I was like, oh, I'm hooked.
Yeah. I think that pays off because of how much time you spend with them in the first half.
Yes.
It sucks that Raka dies before they get there, because I loved that character. And you know how there's like all those memes going around where it's like, this is the squad, this is the gang, and it was funny. And it was Caesar and Rocket and Maurice, and then the one ape that like dies and Rise like halfway through.
Yeah.
But I thought this was gonna be like the new people, like the new but then that's not where this franchise is heading, I guess.
See, and that's what I'm thinking of, where I don't know if Noah's still gonna be around, or just like that clan or the same apes, because I do think that they're just gonna be talking about another section and talk about like these different ideas.
It would be really cool if what you're saying is they decide to focus on different factions, and then that sort of brings them together into this one like grander movie. Yeah. If that's what they were heading towards, that would take a while, but they said they're making a lot of these. Yes. And I wouldn't mind that for sure. That could be an interesting idea, to have a bunch of main characters focused on, and then have them all sort of be about different things, but then have to tie in together in some kind of way.
I mean, they don't have to tie in together, but
well, unless like they just tell individual stories or something, because that's like what the first few had done. I'm glad to be back in this world. I am glad this is as good as it is, because we do live in a world, in an age of bringing back things for bringing back things for no reason. Yes. I'd heard people comparing this to those kinds of franchise reboots, like the Legacy sequels, where people are like, it sort of follows a similar plot structure to Force Awakens, which is fine and all that. But I was also like, the thing about these movies though is they always have something to say. They always are about something to me. So for me, don't bring this franchise back unless you have an idea. Yes. And something you want to have like commentary on. And I do think Proximus Caesar is the big idea there for this one. I love that character a lot. I love his speeches, like you said. I love everything about him, his design. He has this really intimidating presence to him. Yes. And a lot of this worked really well for me. My issues do stem from the first half of the movie as well. It is just a little too laggy in the setting stuff up part. Yes. But I still enjoyed being around these characters so much that it wasn't too much of an issue. And the moment you start to kind of feel like you might need to move on to them, they do. Yes. And that's when they get to the kingdom. And I love the design of that. I love, like, people kept comparing the third act of this to The Way of Water from Avatar, and I can kind of see it. I think it's
when was the last time you saw
Way of Water? Yeah. I saw it like 3 times in theaters. I don't think I've seen it since then.
I've only seen it once in theaters.
Really?
Yeah, and it was like whenever it came out.
The movie's still amazing. I thought.
Yeah. I remember being like, this movie's great.
Yeah, we were kind of not Avatar, like.
I absolutely not. My dad's a big Avatar guy.
Is the first one good, kind of in its own merits? Is the second one a lot better?
Yes.
Yeah.
I do remember that. Yes.
And it's still this, and then Planet of the Apes. This is like visually immaculate, and I think like that's never going to be something you have an issue with these movies. Is there anything else you want to touch on, or
no? I just really hope that I don't know. I am curious, George. I am curious of what new ideas that they're gonna be bringing to this franchise.
Yeah.
But I mean, I don't know, right? Because for me, Caesar gets better, or Caesar from like the last trilogy got better each single time, right?
That's why it's hard to compare, though, right?
Yeah. So I'm just trying to like just judge it on its own right now and be like, well, right now I just don't think Noah himself was as strong as he was from like the last half of the movie, and based on the first half.
It's just like, for me, could he be? Yeah, but like, I think
he just needs more development.
And that's what I'm convinced the final couple of scenes are.
Okay.
Because the reason why I think they're heading and having the opposite arc of Caesar, and these movies are willing to do that. I wish I would have said this in our thing about Rise of Skywalker. Whenever the whole thing with Rey being evil and Kylo being good, I would love it, and these movies would go that far.
Yes.
Like if Noah ended up somehow being the kind of opposite of that.
Like Koba?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where he doesn't trust her at the end of the movie.
Yes.
And then he says, I don't know if Caesar was right or wrong. And then he hands her the thing. I think that's great because it has...
I mean, at the end of the day, they don't have like the knowledge.
Yeah.
So it's kind of...
It just leaves it morally ambiguous. And then it's sort of up to you to figure out. You're like... That's why I love the last shot so much when they both look up into the sky, because they both have two different looks on their faces, because Noah doesn't look happy at the end of the movie, and well, neither does she really, but we don't know why, not yet at least, and I do hope we find out. I mean, I would usually ask you if you'd want to see another one, but I mean
yeah, I do want to see the next one.
I love this. I have the same issues with it that you did, more or less, but maybe just not as strongly, I guess.
Yeah.
If you were to give this a score...
4 out of 5.
4 out of 5?
Yeah.
I'm going a little bit higher. 4.5 out of 5. I think this is really great. I think it compares to Rise.
Okay.
And could this one of those movies where could it benefit from the next 5 and 6? Because this is the 4th.
Yes.
That's another thing I was apprehensive about, was I was really hoping that it wasn't a reboot. I didn't want it to be a reboot.